Well, we finally made it to the last chapter. And what we're going to talk about here is just finishing your site up. There's a lot of additional tasks, some related to HTML writing and some related to just managing the site that you'll need to work on in order to complete the site and put it out on the web. Of course, I'm going to use our website project for all the examples here. And let me just open up the index page in my text application. And of course, I'd also like to open up the CSS page. Throughout this chapter, really what I want to do is give you some best practices and some hints about how to build good sites. Of course, it starts with writing good code. And we've done a pretty good example of that with our website project. Good code is a lot of things. Some of it is just neatness and the way that you organize your code on the page. It's also things like remembering to close off tags or making sure that you have your tag nesting correct. But it also goes deeper than that. It's using the CSS and HTML properties and features to best present your content and make your content more readable and searchable for your users. To start with, we've used HTML and CSS in a way that separates the content from the styling. If you take a look at our index page as an example, as I scroll down through it, most of the elements on the page comprise the content or what we're trying to say on the site. We've got our pictures and our paragraphs, our statistics, and all the other elements that are creating our tour guide for the user. Meanwhile, our CSS file holds most of the styles, and we're not cluttering up our normal page with the styles so that when a search engine comes and looks at the index page, it's going to see content. And that's going to mean that our pages and our website are indexed better by each search engine that comes and visits, making it easier for our users to find us and find the information that they're looking for. We've also made really good use of our contextual tags here in our pages. The nav and header tags clearly define where the top of the page is, and the section tags as well as the aside tags down at the bottom all make our content more meaningful and more multi-device friendly. It'll even help search engines catalog and index our site content so that it gets properly labeled. And as we said before, it also helps us to address the accessibility of our site. As we finish up the content pages, it's a good idea to go back and look through your site and make sure that you've dealt with some of the accessibility details. Things like adding alternate text to your image tags so that you have meaningful information provided to users even if the image isn't available. There are also a few standard lines of HTML code that we can add to our web pages to help browsers understand not only the format of our content, but which character set's being used and which languages as well. While these are optional, it's a good idea to add them to just about every web page. The first one declares which character set we're using to write our content. Now I'm writing my whole website using US English, and at the very beginning we chose a character set of UTF-8 in our text application for writing our code and saving our files. I want to add a line of code inside of the head tag of our document here, so let me just add one below the link. And what I'm going to add is called a meta tag. Meta tags allow us to add additional data about the page and the content itself. And in this case, I'm going to use the HTTP-equiv attribute to access header information for the page. When using this kind of meta tag, the HTTP-equiv is where we declare what property we're setting. And for this example, I want to set the content type. Now, in order to set the value, we need another attribute, and this is the content attribute. And here we set the actual type. We're creating text/HTML documents. So I'll put that in first with a semicolon after it. There's actually a lot of different types of documents out on the web today, and it's important for the browser to know which elements might be data or files that need to be transferred, and which elements are contents that need to be rendered right into the browser window. We're also going to add the character set, and we do that by using charset equals, and then we specify our type, which is UTF-8. And as we said before, that's probably the most common character set used on web pages throughout the world. I'll put a self-closer on my meta tag, and now when browsers read our document and first load it, they'll know exactly what type of document it is and which character set to use when rendering the page. If you want to set your page's language, you can do that up in the HTML tag. There's an attribute called lang, and there are a number of different codes you can use to specify which language is used on the page. For ours, we would use a value of EN for English and -US to distinguish it from British English. Now, generally, if your site is written in English, you don't need to add a language tag, since most of the content on the web is. But if your content was in another language, like for instance Spanish or French, you would definitely want to include this in the HTML tag to make sure your page was listed and searched properly by all search engines for foreign language words. While we're still on the subject of setting character sets, there's one that we should include for our CSS file as well. So let me just save my changes to my index page so far, and I'll go over to my CSS page, and right at the very top, we'll add a character set declaration. This one's very specific and needs to be typed correctly, so we start with ampersand and char set. We leave a space, and then we use quotes to name our character set, UTF-8, and then with no spaces after it, I follow it immediately with a semicolon. That will set our CSS file character set to UTF-8 just like our HTML documents. I'll save my changes to the style sheet, and we should set up a character type for the rest of the pages in our sites as well. As I said before, since our site is using US English, we don't have to specify that. But I will go back to my index page, and I'll select the meta tag that sets our content type. We'll copy that, and I'll go down and open up our cable car page. And I'll just go beneath the link tag here again, paste our meta tag in, and make sure that it's inside of the head tag. We'll save that change, and before we post our site, we'll make sure to make that same change to all of our other pages.